In the lively streets of Johannesburg, where dreams struggle to survive amidst the chaos, Careen is more than just a street vendor, she's a force of nature. Orphaned by a devastating tragedy, she carries the weight of her past every day, with one goal, to make her late parents proud by completing her education. But the battle is fierce. By day, she's a diligent student. By night, she's on the streets selling water, fighting exhaustion, loneliness, and the overwhelming weight of responsibility. Michael, the handsome, charismatic son of a billionaire CEO, lives a life of luxury and privilege, but he's far from happy. Beneath the surface, he feels disconnected from the world around him, yearning for something real, something that doesn't come with a price tag. When he meets Careen at school, it's love at first sight for him. But for Careen, this feels like a dream she's not sure she's worthy of. She's not sure that someone like Michael could love someone like her, someone who's struggled, someone who's never had the luxury of a worry-free life. Their love grows, fueled by moments of tenderness and stolen glances, even as their worlds remain worlds apart. But everything is put to the test when Careen's tireless hustle to secure a future for herself causes her to miss Michael's most important basketball game. When Michael's world falls apart after the game, he questions whether their love is worth the sacrifice. And for Careen, balancing her dreams, love, and the reality of her circumstances feels like an impossible task. But destiny is never so simple. A second chance looms on the horizon, a chance to heal old wounds and rebuild the trust that's been broken. But will it be enough? Can their love survive the scars of the past, or will the weight of their different worlds be too much to bear? Open book: A Billionaire's Heart, a love that money can't buy, an unforgettable story of sacrifice, ambition, and the redemptive power of love. In this emotional African love story, where wealth and privilege collide with grit and perseverance, two hearts must fight to stay together despite all odds. Glowing Star, subscribe to African Folktale Story for more soul-stirring tales like this, where love isn't just a feeling, it's a journey. The sun beat down mercilessly on the bustling streets of Johannesburg, where life moved fast and opportunities felt like a mirage in the distance. Careen, dressed in a worn school uniform and scuffed black shoes, balanced a crate of water bottles on her head. Her hands clutched a stack of tattered schoolbooks, and her weary eyes scanned the crowd for potential customers. "Cold water. Ice-cold water," she called out, her voice hoarse from the relentless heat and hours of shouting. This was her life now, a delicate balancing act between survival and ambition. It had been 3 years since the accident that changed everything. 3 years since her father had died in a car crash, and her mother's heart had shattered, literally and figuratively, leaving Careen an orphan. Now, at only 19, she was both a student and a breadwinner, determined to pay her school fees and complete her education. The crowd bustled past her, indifferent to her struggles. Careen sighed and wiped the sweat from her brow. Business was slow today, and the deadline for her school fees loomed large. If she didn't make enough money by the end of the week, she'd be forced to drop out, and that was not an option. Her parents' dreams for her future echoed in her mind, pushing her forward. As the hours dragged on, Careen found herself near the gates of the prestigious Ridgeview Academy, a private school for the wealthy elite. She'd been fortunate to earn a scholarship there, but even with the financial aid, she still had to cover additional costs like books, uniforms, and exams. The sound of laughter and polished shoes against the pavement made her chest tighten. Her classmates lived in a different world, one where money was no object, and dreams were handed out on silver platters. A world she could only glimpse from the sidelines. "Hey, Careen," a familiar voice called out. She turned to see Michael, the school's basketball star and the son of a billionaire CEO. His broad smile and effortless confidence made him the center of attention wherever he went. Yet, despite his privileged background, Michael had always been kind to her. "Hi, Michael," she replied, forcing a smile. She tried to ignore the curious glances of his friends, who were undoubtedly wondering why he was talking to the water girl. Michael jogged over, his basketball tucked under one arm. "You're out here again? Don't you ever rest?" "I'll rest when I can afford to," she said with a shrug, her tone sharper than she intended. He frowned, sensing her frustration. "Let me buy a bottle," he offered, reaching for his wallet. "No need," she said quickly, handing him a bottle. "It's on the house." "I insist," Michael said, placing a crisp note in her hand. Their fingers brushed, and for a brief moment, Careen felt a flicker of something she couldn't quite name. She shook it off, thanking him and turning back to her work. As Michael walked away, he couldn't help but glance back at her. There was something about Careen that intrigued him, her resilience, her determination, and the quiet strength that radiated from her. He had everything money could buy, but he'd never met anyone like her. Careen's days were long, but her nights were even longer. After finishing her street vending, she'd head home to a small, one-room apartment in Soweto with peeling paint and a leaking roof. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She'd stay up late into the night, poring over her textbooks by the dim light of a kerosene lamp, determined to keep her grades up. Despite her exhaustion, she always made time for Michael. Over the weeks, their friendship had blossomed into something deeper. They'd meet after school to study, share stories, and dream about the future. Michael's charm and optimism were a balm to Careen's weary soul, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for a better tomorrow. But hope can be a fragile thing. One evening, Michael invited Careen to his basketball final. It was the biggest game of the season, and he'd worked tirelessly to prepare. "Promise me you'll be there," he said, his eyes searching hers. "I promise," she replied, her heart swelling with affection. Yet, when the night of the game arrived, Careen found herself trapped in a whirlwind of responsibilities. A last-minute customer had demanded more water, and she couldn't afford to turn them down. By the time she arrived at the stadium, the game was over, and Michael's team had lost. He was sitting alone on the bleachers, his head in his hands. Careen approached hesitantly, guilt gnawing at her. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I tried to." "You weren't there," he interrupted, his voice cold. "You promised, Careen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I had to work. You know how important this is to me." "And I'm not," he shot back, his frustration boiling over. "I've always been there for you, but when I needed you most, you couldn't even show up." Careen had no response. She watched helplessly as Michael walked away, leaving her alone in the empty stadium. The days that followed were a blur of pain and regret. Michael threw himself into his studies and basketball, trying to forget Careen. She, in turn, worked harder than ever, determined to prove herself. But no matter how busy she kept herself, the ache in her heart remained. It was Michael who broke the silence first. One afternoon, he approached her outside school, his expression softer than she'd expected. "Careen, I've been thinking. I was too hard on you. I didn't realize how much you're carrying." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." He took her hand, his gaze steady. "I don't want to lose you, Careen. Let's figure this out together." From that moment, their relationship took on a new depth. Michael began to see the world through Careen's eyes, understanding her struggles and sacrifices. And Careen, in turn, learned to let him support her, realizing that she didn't have to carry her burdens alone. With Michael's encouragement, Careen started exploring opportunities beyond street vending. He introduced her to his father, who was impressed by her intelligence and drive. "We could use someone like you in our company," he said, offering her an internship that would help cover her school fees. For the first time, Careen allowed herself to dream beyond mere survival. She threw herself into her studies and work, her confidence growing with each passing day. And through it all, Michael was by her side, her biggest cheerleader and steadfast partner. Life at the internship was both exhilarating and challenging. Careen was determined to prove herself, but the corporate world was a far cry from the streets of Johannesburg. She often found herself overwhelmed by the sheer scale of her responsibilities. Michael's support remained her anchor. He would often surprise her with lunch or help her brainstorm ideas for her projects. But their time together became scarce as both juggled their commitments. One day, during a particularly stressful week, Michael caught Careen avoiding his calls. "What's going on?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I'm just so busy," she replied, her voice strained. "I didn't want to burden you with my problems." "Careen, you're not a burden," he said, taking her hands. "We're in this together. But you have to let me in." Her heart ached at the sincerity in his voice. She nodded, realizing that she'd been pushing him away out of fear of appearing weak. Together, they worked out a plan to balance their relationship with their individual goals. Months passed, and Careen's hard work began to pay off. She completed her internship with glowing recommendations and was offered a full-time position at the company. With her first paycheck, she paid off her school fees and moved into a modest but comfortable apartment closer to work. On the day of her graduation, Michael surprised her with a bouquet of roses and a heartfelt speech. "Careen, you've shown me what true strength looks like. You inspire me every day, and I'm so proud of you." Tears streamed down her face as she hugged him tightly. "I couldn't have done it without you, Michael." As they stood together, surrounded by friends and family, they knew that their journey was only beginning. The challenges they had faced had forged a bond that was unbreakable, proving that love, true love, was worth every struggle. Careen reflects on her idyllic childhood in a small, tight-knit community in Soweto. Her father, a teacher, had always emphasized the value of education, while her mother's warm, nurturing spirit made their modest home a haven. Careen's dream of becoming a lawyer started during these years, inspired by her father's stories about standing up for the oppressed. One day, her father's car accident shattered that world. A vivid description of her mother's quiet heartbreak adds layers to the grief that shaped Careen's determination. These memories fuel her every decision, reminding her why she can't afford to give up. A deeper dive into Michael's life reveals his inner conflict. While he appears to have everything, a luxurious home, prestige, and popularity, he feels trapped by his father's expectations to take over the family business. Basketball is his escape, the only thing that feels truly his. As his relationship with Careen grows, he begins questioning the superficiality of his life. In a heartfelt moment, he confesses to her how empty his world feels without meaning or purpose. Careen, in turn, encourages him to explore his passions beyond basketball and family obligations. Careen's growing confidence at the internship catches the attention of her boss, but it also sparks jealousy among her colleagues. One coworker, Fiona, spreads rumors about her being favored because of her relationship with Michael. Careen is hurt but decides to focus on proving her worth through hard work. In a dramatic confrontation, Fiona accuses Careen during a meeting, but Michael's father steps in, citing Careen's outstanding contributions to the company. This event solidifies Careen's resolve to rise above challenges. Michael decides to confront his father about the pressure he's been under to follow in his footsteps. In an emotional conversation, he explains his desire to chart his own path and find his identity outside of the family business. His father, initially resistant, eventually sees the courage in Michael's decision and agrees to support him, as long as he approaches his future with the same determination he's shown in basketball. This newfound understanding with his father allows Michael to fully commit to supporting Careen and pursuing his own dreams. Their relationship deepens as Michael becomes a source of steady support for Careen during her journey in the corporate world. As Careen's career flourishes, she doesn't forget her roots. She begins organizing small initiatives in Soweto, using her newfound resources to give back to the community that shaped her. Her initiatives include tutoring programs for underprivileged students and creating a scholarship fund in her parents' names. Michael joins her in these efforts, and the two bond over their shared desire to make a difference. The community's love and support for Careen grow, reinforcing her belief that success is not just about personal achievement, but about lifting others along the way. Fiona, the co-worker who once spread rumors about Careen, witnesses her unwavering work ethic and the respect she earns from their colleagues. Realizing her mistake, Fiona approaches Careen with an apology. While hesitant at first, Careen accepts it, choosing forgiveness over resentment. This moment becomes a turning point for Careen, as it reflects her maturity and ability to lead with kindness even in the face of adversity. It also opens the door to a new friendship, proving that people can change when given the chance. One evening, after months of working together to balance their relationship, careers, and community projects, Michael surprises Careen with a romantic dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Johannesburg skyline. As the sun sets, he takes her hand and tells her how much she means to him. "You've shown me what it means to love, to grow, and to believe in something greater than myself," Michael says, dropping to one knee. "Careen, will you marry me?" Overwhelmed with emotion, Careen says yes, and the couple embraces as fireworks light up the night sky. Their love story, though filled with trials and sacrifices, has led them to this beautiful moment. The final chapter shifts to a few years later. Careen and Michael are now married and running a nonprofit organization focused on education and entrepreneurship in underserved communities. Careen's dream of becoming a lawyer is realized as she